Hello and welcome to 9 to 5 Data, where we talk about data analytics. In the last video, we talked about the Help tab, which is the last menu on the report view. But also in the last video, I promised us that we'll be going into the data view. But before we do that, let's try and look at the view tab on the report view one more time. And this time around, we'll be looking at the different panes that we have on the report view, even though we've seen some of them. But the important one that I told us that we would see in upcoming video is the visualization pane, which is very important. We need to understand this because this is where we'll be spending most of our time when we are doing development of dashboard in Power BI. So we need to understand the parameters, the settings, and how they control everything we see on our canvas. So let's go there. So if we go to your Power BI and you go to view, so there are different subsections which we have talked through them. So the most important one is the pane, the show pane subsection. So we explain the filter, the bookmarks, and the rest. So the one that we want to talk about now is the visualization pane. And on the visualization pane, we have two tabs, which is the build visuals, and we have this one, which is the format your report. So what this does for us is that in the build visuals, this is where we select a lot of visuals that we use to analyze our data or in reporting our data in Power BI. So the first one that we have is the stack bar chart. And if you keep going through all of them till the last one, which is the Power Automate for Power BI. And under this, we have the new or the ones that are being previewed by Power BI. So they are not entirely sure. They are still doing testing. So most of these, you will find them here, especially when there's a new update or there's a new chart Power BI is trying to test, then it falls under the preview. And if you have any custom visual or custom charts that you have imported into your Power BI, it is also going to show under this place. So if you look at our canvas, you see that we don't have anything or any visualization on it right now. So the button to the right of our build visual, which is this tab, format your report. So we have to talk about this first before we then put a visualization on our canvas, because when we put our visualization on our canvas, then this button is going to change into something else. So right now, if we click on format your report page, so what these let us do is to let us make a lot of changes to the canvas, the report page, and everything we are seeing there. So the first segment is the page information. So right now my page title is home. So I can come to this page information and change it from home to, let's say, title. And then it changes. If you look at it, then we have a change name there. So for your own, it could be page one, and if you change it, it changes the name. And again, we can set this first page, we can set it as our landing page. So you can either do it from here, turn it on, and it becomes your landing page where you see a little icon showing that this is your landing page. And also there's option. If you right click on this, you see that there's also option to do the settings here, which it is already checked, set as landing page. So the other thing again we can do with this is that we can say we want to allow this current page as our tooltip page. Also, we can set that we should allow Q&A, which is going to be retired very soon by Power BI. So you can set it on off here. And also there's button to take it back to default settings. So that is the first segment. So if you go to the canvas setting and expand that, so this is where we can change the size of our canvas. So by default, Power BI use 16:9, which is landscape. And you will notice that the width and height of the canvas is grayed out. That means we can make changes to it when it is already at landscape mode. And also you can change that to 4:3, which definitely it becomes a portrait. You can see the changes as I'm clicking them. The other one you can do is maybe change it to letter, or you can make it a tooltip, or you can do a custom height and width. So for an experienced Power BI developer, what we usually do, for me especially, what I usually do is use custom settings, and I'll be able to then adjust the width and height of the canvas. So I can change this to 1440 pixels, and then I'll leave the height the way it is and adjust as needed. So right now, what is happening is that you see that we don't see the rest of the guideline for the canvas again. We can only see the one below. The reason for this is that we need to also change some settings, and this is also going to affect the experience of the people that are consuming our Power BI. So, for example, now I've changed this to custom. So, if we go to page view, which I explained to us in previous video, that we have fits to page, which definitely Power BI will try to shrink or fit our canvas or report to the page on which it is being viewed. So if somebody is viewing on a tablet, their experience will be different from somebody viewing on the desktop. So what I usually then do is to fit to width. Then you can see now that we have all the four edges of the canvas now showing to us, because that is now fit to the width of the screen that I'm using to do this recording or view the report. So whenever you publish your dashboard and you've made changes to the canvas setting, then it is appropriate that you come to this page view and fit it to width so that everybody get the same experience across different devices that they are using. So the vertical alignment is always set to top, so you don't need to change anything. And you can always click on reset to default here to take us back to the default setting. So if I click on this, then we go back to our standard landscape mode. So that is the canvas setting. So the next one we have is the canvas background, which is really important because we can do a lot of settings here. So by default, our canvas background is always white. So we can come here and make changes to the color. Say, for example, I want to have this color. So this orange color now, nothing is showing on the background. And the reason why nothing is showing is because the transparency is at 100%. So we need to bring the transparency down. So you can now see the actual color I've selected. And if you bring it up again, just a bit, then it starts to, fade out. So that is the work of transparency. You can set the percentage as you want. So the other thing again is that apart from using color as a background, you can also use an image as a background, and that is really straightforward. So the first thing to do is to get the image you want to use. So for example, if I go to this place, which will allow me to browse my file explorer, so I then have an image that I can use. So I have this image, and if I click on open, and then I have the image. So say for example, let me set this back to white. So what is happening is that the image is not covering the whole canvas. And most of the time, if you have an image like that, then you can control the way it behaves on the canvas by using the image fit. So I can use maybe stretch, then it's going to stretch to the entire area of the canvas, or I can use the fill to fill it to the whole area of the canvas. So that is the way to make it fit into the canvas. But most of the time, it depends on the kind of image you're using. So it is really advisable that if you are going to use an image as the canvas background, you should ensure that it has the same dimension as the size of the canvas. So for example, I showed us that the canvas is 16 by 9, which is landscape. Then you can see the width and the height. So it is important to just make sure that your picture also have the same width and height to ensure distortion of the picture, because when you start to fill or stretch the picture, then it gets blurry or distorted. So that is for the canvas background. The wallpaper has the same setting as the canvas background, but the problem with this is that whenever you make changes to the wallpaper, it always extend beyond the canvas. So this change is going to apply to your canvas and even your whole workspace in general. So let me reset the canvas background and make some changes to the wallpaper. So if I reset this and then I go to wallpaper and then make it use this picture, you can see now that the background is extending beyond the canvas, which most of the time it is not something you would like to work with or the way you would like to design. So it is advisable that you don't really bother yourself and do anything with wallpaper. So that is for the wallpaper. So let's reset this back to default. So if we go to the filter pane, so the filter pane allows us to do some formatting on the filter. So you can change the font size, the text color, and everything like that, and input header. So you might be wondering, where do you use this? So if you publish your report, the filter is always published alongside the report. So the way to avoid that is to come to this icon, and then you can maybe hide the filter. So once it is hidden, then you only get your report published, not the filter. So if you like to then publish your filter, so these are the settings or the parameters you can change to ensure that it follows the way or the formatting you would like to do. Maybe change the font, the color, and everything like that. So, but for seasoned developer, we don't usually do this. So, because you have your slicers or your filters on the report itself, which people can use, and that you can use that to control the narration of your report or of your dashboard. So, most of the time, I don't really do any settings on this because I'll just turn this filter off before publishing my dashboard. So, that is that about the format your report page. So if you go back to the build visual and we add a line chart, so we'll notice that we have some extra settings or extra parameters that we need to fill in. So most of the time when you add any visual to the canvas, these settings always come up and they look alike, but the settings you have for the line chart is different from the bar chart. So they have some unique settings to them. And again, when we added visual to the canvas, then you see that this button changes to format your visuals instead of formatting your report page. And now we have an additional button or additional tab, which allows us to then do some further analysis on the visual that we have on our report or on our dashboard. But most of the time, it is not always available for every chart. So it's only for some selected charts, and also it is not available for third-party tool or third-party visualization. So you need to put that in mind, and I would explain to us later what we can do with this further analysis tab. So if we then go down, so building charts or building visuals in Power BI is just the same way we do it in real life. Say, for example, you have a pen and paper and you want to draw a line chart. You know that we need our X and Y axis, and most of the time, one of them has to be an aggregation. So let's take, for example, the city column. Let's drag it to our x-axis here, and then drag the same city column to our y-axis. So you notice that we have some changes now. So let me drag this to the center. We have some changes. So even though we use the same column in our x and y axis, so in the y axis, we have the count of the city because that is how visuals are built. So there's always an aggregation. And when we start to talk about DAX in Power BI, I will show us how to build different aggregation to support the report we want to build or the dashboard we want to create. So right now, we also have some additional parameters that we need to fill in, like secondary axis, the legend, and small multiples, and everything like that. But for now, we are going to skip them because we don't want to prolong this video. So now that we have our chart of visual in on our canvas, the next thing we can do is that we can start to format this, and that is what this button is for: format your visual. So right now we have two tabs. We have the visual and we have the general. So the visual gives us the ability to control what we are seeing on the chart. That is the visual itself. And the general is more of like the properties of the visual. So we'll look at them one after the other. So we have this x-axis, and when we look at the build visual tab, we added something to the x-axis, and then we can control or change or format what we have added to the x-axis. So for example, we expand this, and then we can either turn on the value or turn it off. So if you turn this off, then you don't see anything again. So everything that is x-axis disappears. So if you turn it on again, then we can see the name of the cities, which are the x-axis, and then we can do a whole lot of text formattings like changing the font size, make it bold and underlined. So whatever you want to do with that, and we can even change the color. So we change this color to this, and we can go back to this and then reset to default. And also we can change the title. So this is going to get the title of the column we use, and we can say city name, and then it changes. So the other thing again is that we can do the same settings for the y-axis. If you look at it again, we see that there's value, which we can change the value. And since it is a numerical or an aggregation, so we have some things that are really different from what we saw on the x-axis, like saying the decimal point, the display units and everything like that, change it from thousands to none, and then we get the actual value. And you can do a whole lot of things like that. And again, we can control the line that we see on our chart. So we can change this from solid to dashed, and you see that. And we can even change the width of our line, which that is showing in real time as we are making the changes. And then we can even change the color of our line. So say for example, you come down here, change it from blue, and let me pick this color golden, and you can even see that it's changing on real time. So we also have some additional settings which when we start to build a proper project, you get to see how to make changes to them. Say for example, you can change the data label, and that will show us the different data points in our line chart. So the other one is this further analysis that I told us that it is not really available for all charts, but for some selected charts, there are available. This place you can add constant line onto our chart. Say, for example, I just want to add a constant line and I say something like 3000. So you can see that the line is on our chart, and if change this to like, let's say black, then you notice that. So this is where we start to enhance our visualization. Maybe there, for example, we have a target we are trying to meet, and this can actually be the target line, and we can see the trend or the performance reporting if we're actually meeting the target or not. So a whole lot of things we can do on this place. We can add minimum line, max line, average line, median line, percentile. So the line can also be dynamic, based on what you want. So if you had like an average line, so definitely as the data increases, then the average also changes. And if you add a median line, so same thing. So this is everything we'll be talking about the visualization pane. And by understanding this, it will be easier for us to actually build a dashboard. So we've also talked about the data pane. So we're not going to do any discussion on this. So the other one that we'll look at is the filter pane. Even though we've talked about this, but if we look at the filter pane, you notice that under the filters on these visuals, we have two filter already in it, which is the city, and also we have the count of city. So if you pay attention, you notice that it is the value of our x-axis and the y-axis that have been added to this. So by default, they get added to the visual, and you can use this drop down to expand the visual. And then there's something we call filter type. So right now the filter is on basic filtering, and we get all the values in that particular column, and we can either select. Right now everything is being selected, so we can either select all and then unselect the one that will not be part of this, or unselect everything and just click one that we want to see. So that is for basic filtering. And then we can change this to advanced filtering, which would then say, okay, everything that contains the letter B. So say letter B, and if you click on apply filter, then we start to see every city name that contains letter B. So that is one of the advanced filtering. And also we can say maybe top value. So let's say we want to do maybe top 10 by the counting. So you have to add a visualization to this. So by default, it will give us the counting. By the counting, and you click on apply filter, then it will show us top 10 city by the counting. So it's just like, ordering it from top, descending order. So if you no longer need all these applied filters again, or you feel like you want to apply a new filter entirely, then you can click on this eraser button, which will clear all the filter and it will be back to the default value or the default mode. So another thing again is that we can bring in a new or a different column to also filter these visualizations that we are seeing, all this visual that we are seeing. So if we bring in the state column and you add it to this place, then this is going to then serve as a filter for this visual. So for example, if I put it at the state of LA, then we only see the city that are part of the state of LA. So if I change it again, say for example, I put Florida. So now I haven't unticked the LA. So we see cities that are part of LA and Florida. So if I untick this, then we have only the ones that are for FL. So also, like I said before, since this is not natively part of the visualization, we'll have an icon to remove this filter entirely, or we can clear it. So let's just remove the filter entirely and we are back to our default mode. So we have another segment under the filter, which is filter on this page. The same filtering that we have done on the filter on this visual, the same settings and everything apply on filter on this page. But the O filtering or the O effect will be felt by every visuals that we have on our canvas. It's not just going to be the selected visual alone. So it will be for every visual that we have on our canvas. So same thing, you can do the same settings that we saw earlier on filter on all pages, but it's not just going to be the page that we are working with alone. It's going to be on every page that we have in this Power BI file. So that is everything I have to show you on this visualization and also the filter pane. So don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel and comment. So in the next video, we'll be moving on to the data view. See you in the next video. Thank you.